everybody, and good afternoon to a few of you who are on the other side of the earth. Welcome to the dialogue series, trying to have walk the talk conversations with the global library leaders. It's giving immense opportunity for MSSRF to actually host this through the INELI program. And we have very passionate librarians from South Asia who are part of almost 6 different countries here. And each one of them have different ways in which they are actually executing and showcasing different kinds of services in their own libraries. So as part of this program, we are actually making the effort of bringing together stalwarts. When we mean stalwarts, we really mean those who have got their hands dirty, they've really got themselves working, and they've actually set the stage for libraries who have still not looked at how they can reimagine libraries to serve communities. So we're very fortunate today to have with us a very, very experienced speaker. And I'd like to give a very elaborate introduction to her. Her name is Barbara Lisbon. She is the director and she is the CEO of the Burman Public Library. And imagine, she's been in that library since 1992. So see the dearth of information that she is carrying with us. And it's giving us an opportunity to interact with her innate passion to drive libraries through her work more in alignment by making it more democratic for the community, by building, cultural diversity and making sure that there is also freedom of access to information. I think that is so important, that information is made available to people freely. And I think right now, COVID has allowed us to share our knowledge as much as possible freely across the globe. And that's one reason why we have this stalwart here today with us. She's also committed towards policy and advocacy, marketing and governance issue. She looks at fair copyright and e-lending conditions to achieve the right e-reader for library users. So she's also looking at how you can make it more accessible to libraries, how the information can be made accessible to the users through the libraries. She believes in actually networking and partnering with different branches of people who are actually part and parcel of the library field. She would like to make those experiences an opportunity and is a great chance to learn from one another and to create a knowledge exchange among each other. She's been an active member for more than 20 years with IFLA, and she's made quite a bit of contribution in the section of metropolitan libraries. She's also currently the standing committee member, and she's also leading the e-lending groups. So you can see that she wears different feathers in her cap. She's also had the honor of working as in the IFLA governing board for 2 terms from 2011 2013 to 2015, and she's also been a major contributor to the IFLA trend report on the Lion Declaration and the IFLA Code of Ethics. So with this, actually, I get goosebumps as I read about her profile, that she's really enriched with knowledge. And it is a great pleasure, Barbara, to actually have you on board today to share with us what does it really mean to be the art of a library leader. Open to you now, Barbara.
Thank you very much. Shall we change this? Yeah, that's nice. Thank you very much, Priyanka, and thank you very much for the invitation. I am very happy that I can be with you for this hour. This is early afternoon in Germany, and I know it is evening for you, and I hope you had a good work day and are not too tired for this conversation with you. INELI is something which is very close to me because at the beginning, almost 10 years ago, I was also a mentor in the second INELI cohort and the second international INELI cohort. So I am so glad that this is continuing and that the new leaders are coming and understanding the importance of being a leader and to become a leader, and also the importance of being an international leader. Priyanka did a long introduction to my person, and as it was so long, I think she forgot that I'm the president-elect of IFLA at the moment, and that I will be president from August 21 on until 23. So you see, this is something which of course is a big challenge to me. And leadership is also being a library leader, being a leader in a library association, or even become the president of the association, which is a worldwide association. It's a great honor for me. And of course, it's a big challenge. And I hope we can have some time after my presentation to talk about whatever you like, whatever experience you have, or you want me to tell you about my experiences. So I think I start with a little introduction to my library, because, and by the way, I would like to have a name like Lisbon, like the Portuguese capital, but the B is too much. I'm Barbara Lison without the B. But Lisbon is so nice. I think I can continue like that. So I will share now my screen with you. This is the building where I'm sitting in right now. This is the former police station, central police station of my city, Bremen in Germany. And it's a big one, you see. And for those who are not really familiar with the German geography, you can see Germany in Europe. And then you can also see Bremen, which is in the north of Germany, quite close to Hamburg. We are a small city compared to your countries and your cities in the countries. We only have around 550,000 inhabitants. But for German conditions, this is the 10th or 11th biggest city in Germany. So this is where I live now, where I work now. And we have a library which has missions, goals, and of course, very well organized operations. I'm proud about that. You can see that that our service is cultural education, education in culture. And of course, we follow the human rights of free access to information. And of course, we try to give access to the cultural heritage of mankind and hopefully to the cultural future of mankind. Our goals are that we want to support the reading skills and the media competency of our audience, of the children and of the adults as well. We are an open place for lifelong learning. And of course, we want to support everything which is education, may it be in schools or in the training outside schools. And we try to offer learning, but learning not as a strict learning, you sit there and learn, but become enthusiastic with learning. And this is called edutainment. This is a mixture of education and entertainment. And of course, we have service standards. You can see that's quality, efficiency, and of course, customer satisfaction. We are a learning organization. That means our staff is engaged in learning, is engaged in development, in new initiatives. And of course, quality assurance is important. We have a lot of events and programs for continuing professional education. And we work in teams and have operational agreements. Priyanka asked me to let you know something about the new things which are here. One of the new things, which is now trending still, and of course with the pandemic, it has been increasing a lot. I just show you 2019 because 2020 is not a year where you compare, you can have a realistic comparison, because the loans went down, the visits went down, the e-lending went up even more than it normally does. So I just gave you the 2019 figures. And you can see also the money which is spent for our library. It's more than 11,500,000 euro. And that means that we are spending about €1 a year per inhabitant, and that the media cost per inhabitant is about €2. So our library is just 0.33% of the budget of the municipality. So it's a very small amount of the budget. And some pictures of our latest innovations, which are from 2019, because in 2020, the library was in a shutdown for several months. And after that, the library, of course, was opened, but there was nothing which was really attractive to stay in the library, because we wanted the audience to get in and out, but not stay there because of the pandemic. You understand why. So we were dealing with virtual reality in the central library and in the branch libraries quite actively in 2019. And we also, like other libraries in Germany and even more in the Scandinavian countries, we installed technology to have unstaffed opening hours. And we also have a library tech screen that is like a graffito, where you can exercise your artistic or other virtues in doing digital graffiti. So this was just a little glimpse onto my library, and now I would like to start with a little presentation. Priyanka asked me, just tell people how you developed yourself. And of course, developing oneself is not just an occasional thing. It's not just happening, but the important thing is that you need a solid system on which you orientate your own development. I think that is important. It's not just chance which you have. There is a lot of luck which you need for development, but it's not just the chance. So I would like to start, and we then can have some discussions afterwards, with a sentence which I think is so important. Whatever you do when you want to be a leader, personality is absolutely key, and the person is key. So the professional motto for my successful library leadership always was, the library is you. Perhaps you know a saying of a very important French king, Louis XIV, saying, the state is me. And so I just said, well, the library is you. What does that mean? That means that you and the library as a leader have to be identical. And so when people see you on the street, they say, well, that's Barbara. That's the library. So that should be synonymously. When we say the library is you, then it comes to the question, of course, who am I? And how do I impress other people? How do other people see me? And psychology is, well advanced, of course, especially in this issue. So I would like to tell you, perhaps you don't know it. When I heard that for the first time, well, some 15 years ago, it was new to me, that when people look at you, the first 3 seconds of seeing a person are important for the decision, who is that person? That is very important. And of course, who might that be, judging from the social status, maybe from the political orientation, from the educational point, from religion, even from sexuality, from friendliness, and from aptitude. So the first 3 seconds is really important. And when you want to know when you want to impress others, so what do you want that others think about you when they meet you, you have to take that into account. And then something else as well, psychologists found out. When you talk or when you speak or give a presentation, people see you first. So they judge the quality of your presentation or of something which you say or something which you do by more than 50% from your appearance and body language. That is very important to know. 38%, almost 40%, are judged, the quality of what you say is judged by the tone and the pitch and the pace of your voice. And only 7% are judged from the content you say. Imagine, that's less than 10%, only 7%. And that is also important when you think about development and when you think about leadership. So perception really prevails. 90% of the impression you give of being capable is based on perception and not on what you're doing. You see, 30% is the presentation of your work. How do people perceive this? Not how you do this, how do people perceive this? Another 30% is the presentation of the person. Then 30% is what do people think about it? And only 10% is she or he really doing a good job? And what impression does she give to me? It's so prevailing. So what produces a personality? Of course, your assets, your values, and your image. When it comes to the assets, of course, skill is an asset. Ability and experience is an asset as well. And the values, that is which things matter to you. How passionate are you? In which field are you passionate? And of course, the image, what do you project to others? So what kind of impression do you give to the others? So when you have this in mind, this combination of the assets, the values, and the image makes the so-called PBI, the personal brand identity. And let's talk about that personal brand identity for some time, because it is, you can learn how to develop your personal brand identity and what is important for this. And when you look into the literature, personal branding is a leadership must. So when we talk about leadership, of course, there are professional skills and other skills, but sometimes people forget about the personal brand and this identity which is created through the personal brand. And so if you want to be a special person, and every leader is a special person, you should have a personal brand identity. That is very important. And you see Forbes, this was developed, let's say, 20 years ago, this idea, 15 years ago, and then it is being spread to, well, to the community of any profession. So when Forbes says personal branding is a leadership requirement and not a self-promotion campaign, that means that it is not showing off. It is not just unnecessary or saying, well, this guy is always important and showing off and is too ambitious. No, it's not. It is really a requirement when you want to be a leader. So when you want to strengthen your personal leadership brand or the personal brand identity, and you want to start to look at it, I mean, it doesn't come from the heaven. It has to be developed. It's work to do this. It's really work to do this. So, and it's related, of course, mainly, and in our case as well, of course, to our profession and our professional performance. So it is important that you should love what you do. You should love your work. Make a list. Why do you love your work? Why have you become a librarian? Why have you chosen this work? Make a list and judge, is this really what I love? Then, of course, it's not only the online presence which you have to give, it's a presence in the world, which can be online and should be online in the world where we live in, of course, especially during the pandemic. But it's a must now to show the presence of the leader. It is important to be to partner with others. So you should find partners for your work. They also, of course, then might and should appreciate your work. So spread the news about you being a leader to partners. Then, of course, create a tagline for your brand. That means don't change your brand all the time. It should be quite stable once you have found it. And that all done, create an action plan, what you are going to do next. And most important, be self-assured, but within that self-assuredness, ask yourself questions about yourself and about that what you are doing. I think this is a very good, very easy way of creating a leadership brand. Some other smaller ideas and smaller items about creating a personal brand identity. And I will go to everything of these 10 each of these 10 points, giving you some examples. So establish goals and have a focus. Build self-awareness and be genuine. Be clear, be consistent, and live your brand. Live your brand. Oh, it's not live your brand, it's live your brand, sorry. Be ready to fail and show weakness. That is not easy. We will talk about that. Create a positive impact and follow a successful example. Be likable, not liked. And have more questions than answers. And as I said already, build relationships. Now let's go from one to the other. Establish goals and have a focus. Every leader needs to show where he or she wants to go. And it's not just a goal which you have in your head or in your heart or in your tummy. It's a goal which you have to promote. And everyone who is related to that goal, and also anyone, should know what you want. Let's say, Priyanka just said that I'm here for nearly 20 years in Bremen, and you have seen the Central Library. When I came to Bremen, there was no central library like this. There was a very small, unattractive, tiny central library, which was called Central Library. It was not worthwhile the word. And I started, we need a central library. I came to Bremen in 1992, and we opened the Central Library in 2004. It is 12 years. So I was here fighting and creating a public opinion about a new central library for 12 years. And everyone knew, every politicians and other people in the society, and of course, some of the customers knew as well. When Barbara comes, the word central library is one of the first words which she pronounces. So have a goal, promote that goal, and focus on that goal. That is so important for any leader. And once you have a goal, you should not be easy to change it considerably or just step back. Only, of course, if there is a objective reason to do that. But if you don't give up, if there is no objective reason to give up or to change considerably, that is very, very important. When you do that, of course, you need a lot of strength. And self-awareness gives you strength. So you should understand who you are and maybe create yourself, as I showed you on the first slide, which is so important. So master yourself, create an image, and stay for that image, and don't change your image all the time, because when you master yourself and have an image and follow that image, that, like already Lao Tse said, that gives you power. And whatever you are, a leader, you need power, a positive power, not force, but power. And being self-aware and being genuine in the consequence gives you power. That is so important. Something else, be clear. For a very long time, we know I'm a Libra by birth, so perhaps you know the Occidental, what is it? These 12. My personality by birth is a Libra one, so it's a balanced one, and I'm trying to have harmony, or I try to have harmony wherever I was. Being a leader, you must be ready not to always strive for harmony. It is important that you are clear. And for a very long time on my desk was a paper standing, better or rather clear than nice. This is so important. Your people in staff, people around you, they want you to be nice, and then they can influence you because they say, well, she doesn't know what she really wants and she cannot express her goals really. So clarity is a very important characteristics of a leader. And if you are not clear, you are always in trouble between being nice and wanting to get to your goals. And that is a contradiction very often. So clarity is very important for being a leader. Be consistent and live your brand. So it's not only create the brand, but you should live for this. I mean, when people see, when you have created your brand and people know the brand, it would be really hard if you change the brand immediately. You can do it maybe gradually if you have found out that it doesn't work for you, but be consistent, otherwise you won't be successful. And important, whatever your brand is, and you show power, you show clarity. Once you have failed or done a mistake, say this and confirm, yes, I've done a mistake and I will learn from that mistake. That also shows a bit of weakness, but it is a positive weakness. It is not being up a wall between the others and you just hide behind the wall and think, well, I did a failure. I hope no one will notice it. That is really a big problem. So good leaders are ready to fail, are ready to improve afterwards, and also to show their weaknesses. And then you should create, of course, being a leader, a positive impact. That means that people who live with your decisions, who live with your creations, who live with what you are doing and what you have attained, it should be a positive impact. And this impact should maybe even give other positive impacts in the future. That is very important. So don't look only at the next step which you are succeeding in, but try to have a view to the future and to the next steps after the one which is just in front of you. And of course, it is important that you follow successful examples. I hope every one of you has people in mind, may it be in person, like family, friends, or whatever, or professional sense, that you have examples which you can follow. Oh, this person, you see, when I was, let's say, 35 years ago, I started my career in librarianship. And I immediately went to the association, and I was a member of the association. And then at the first General Assembly of that association, I saw the lady who was then the chair. And she was so impressive to me. And I said, really, I want to be like her because she is convincing, she is impressive, she is not showing off without any content. So this person was a really good example for me, and I followed her, not, I mean, step by step, but I followed what she did. And when I had to take things into decisions, I thought, what might she think about it? How would she do this? And of course, this was not the only person in my life, but several persons being role models for me. A library director in the Netherlands of the big port city in Rotterdam was a personal role model for me in international librarianship, and other role models. So it's important you have your personal professional role models, at least one. Some would be, if you have several, would be even more better. And then this sounds a bit awkward maybe. Be likable, not liked. Your goal in a profession is not to be liked. Your goal is to achieve something which is to the best of the task which you have to do and to the commission which you have got. So when you have to decide something and, oh, will my staff like me when I decide this? This is the wrong question. I'm sorry to say this. This is the wrong question. When you want to be successful, not only for yourself, of course, but for the issue and the matter which you have to deal with, then this is one question, but it's not the decisive question. So when you want to be likable, so of course I am happy when people like me, but that is not crucial for me that they like me when there is a decision to be taken, which might not be to the comfort of everyone. Like, for instance, a very current example, the library is open during the pandemic. Of course, there is staff who does not like this. They are afraid. We give them everything which they can have to safeguard themselves, like gloves and masks and all these panels in plexiglass and all this. And many, many measures taken to safeguard the staff, but still they don't want it, some of them. And maybe they don't like, I'm sure they don't like me because I say, we are not allowed to close, but we have to give our customer the service which they pay for when they pay taxes. That is something else. But you see, that is important. A leader must endure not to be liked by everybody, at least. And something else, don't think as a leader that you are already done, that what you have learned 5 years ago is the same what you should know today, and that only what you know is important. So have more questions than answers, and also listen to other people. Like the former president of IFLA, Gloria Perez Salmerón, a Spanish woman. When I was elected president-elect for IFLA, I asked her to give me advice. I asked her to give me advice. I was not saying, oh, I know everything already, so I don't need any advice. I asked her to give me advice. And what did she say? She said to me, listen to people. That is what I learned, listen to people. So leaders should have more questions than answers. They should know the path, but they should not know every detail. They can, of course, but they should not think that they know every detail already. And the last thing is build relationships. Don't stay alone. Look for other people which support you, people whom you can ask even questions which are a bit delicate. And that is important. You have a lot of people where you can rely. They are stable relationships and they understand what the goal of my profession is, and they understand where I'm going. So build relationships and build partnerships. That is very important. Partnerships inside your institutions with staff, that is professional partnerships outside. And of course, then you see with partnerships, and when other people come in, it is always important that your personality is something really, really, really playing the game. That brings us back to the start of my presentation. And as something to take away for you, maybe as my last slide, the most important factors which are in that context is be positive, have a positive approach to things. Don't be negative right away. There are so many negative things in the world, and you have to deal with them. But if you are negative as well, you are not successful. You won't succeed. And empathy is important. I said, I have to endure that I'm not liked by everyone, but I should feel how the others feel and then decide as well. So that is empathy. Empathy is a part of a social intelligence scheme, which is a broader thing. Social competences, talking, speaking, listening, watching, self-confidence, self-awareness, believe in yourself, self-aware, and be ready to change your attitude when it is necessary. You are not made of stone, but you are made of flesh. You are a human being. You can change your attitude if it is necessary, but not without it is necessary. And the last line is, understand that it is not about me what you're doing. It is always about the others, but you still have to be yourself when you communicate and meet others and when you go into the world and do your professional work. So with this, I thank you very much for your attention. And now I'm looking forward to your questions and to our conversation. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Barbara. That was very insightful for us. I think it's like reorienting ourselves as to why personal brand building is really required in actually diverse ways. So it's just not one element that adds to your personality. There are many things that make you who you are, and it's an ongoing process. Right now, before we step into question and answers, we will have a quick cafe conversation. We have with us a HR, lead, learning and development specialist with us. Her name is Preeta. She has eons of experience in this field of leadership competencies and how do you really, develop the self in the process. So she would probably ask you a couple of questions related to leadership competencies and probably some of your stories, making it a little bit more interesting before our innovators asking a couple of more questions to you. So over to you, to Preeta. Welcome to the session today.
So, hi, Barbara. Thank you so much for that inspiring talk. In fact, I was just parallelly chatting with Priyanka, and I said, hey, you know what? Barbara's answering to all the questions that I had already prepared. So I had to go back and redo all my questions because you spoke about so many things which kind of, fell very well with my agenda. But nevertheless, I have a couple of questions for you, and I would like to make it as interesting and as informal as possible. And I see that you already have a coffee with you, and I have water with me for my...
I have water.
Oh, okay. Water. So we both have water.
It's not gin, it's water.
Great. So we both are having water as company. You mentioned that 2020 as a year cannot be taken as a prototype, right? When giving an example. And so I see that change was the most important word in our world, right? In entire 2020. So as a leader, as a very senior leader, how did you drive change in your space? I also see that you've been an advisor in many of the bodies. You're a trustee. You're also holding very important position as the director and CEO in the Bremen Library. So especially in terms of influencing people in a time of change, during the time of pandemic, during a time of ambiguity when you may not have all the answers, especially with government bodies, are the hard nuts to crack, because a lot of our innovators work with people part of the public sector, and that's where the real challenge is. So could you give a compelling example of how you have navigated through this successfully or unsuccessfully, and what were your learnings? Because you said that one needs to talk about failures also, so I would like to hear your perspective on this.
Yes, so I think we have several tracks. There was one track when it comes to staff. As I don't know everything, and I know much less than my staff in special things, in special details. So giving the staff a broad scope of action, that is important, and have the staff make their things out of their knowledge, out of their experience, even more than before. So giving staff a broad scope of action with, of course, goals which have been in a kind of a contract, a personal contract. That is always, for a very long time, something which we do in our library. But in the pandemic, in this time of change, we even gave a broader scope to staff. For instance, with the social media, we had a social media team which was responsible for social media, and no one else was doing social media activities for the library apart from this team. And now we said, oh, staff, please do be inventive, try what you can do, and put the library into social media, bring them into social media, whatever you can do. And they were so inventive. They were really great. And they enjoyed very much this even broader scope of activity and broader scope of action. So we are surely keeping that broader scope of activity in many things also after the pandemic. That is one thing. The other thing is the outside world of the library. And it is important to show the importance of the library to the public still, as it always was. You know, we have been talking about the third place, that we have a wonderful library for communication, a learning place, whatever it is. You know this, and you know everyone knows this now here in this community. And now all of a sudden we closed the library and the library was not there for the public. Oh dear, how horrible. And then it is important, how do you promote the library when it is closed? And luckily, and I think it was everywhere, people were in high demand of the library. So that was so making me happy, that I saw that people say, we want the library open. When is the library open again? We want books. Let us have books. We want ebooks. How can we get into the ebook landing and all this? So that was so important. It happened. And I used that to tell the politicians, the political decision makers, how important the library is. And I sometimes told people who phoned me, well, how could you close the library? Because even now the library is more important than it is. And I said to them, oh, phone our Lord Mayor or phone the Senator for Culture and give them the information, or tell them that there is not enough ebooks in the library. The library needs more money to buy ebooks. And actually that worked quite well. So once an institution like a library is closed, you have to make a lot of noise outside. That is important everywhere, with the people and with the staff, and of course with the politicians as well. And still, the thing is, there are only, Germany has 16 states. Like many countries where you are in, there are several states, and every state can decide what to close and how to do things. And there are 16 states in Germany, and in 13 states, the libraries have to be closed. And in Bremen is a state as well, though it is very small. And in the state of Bremen, in the state of Hamburg and in the state of Berlin until yesterday. I don't know how it will be tomorrow. Until yesterday, the libraries were open. And we communicated this to the people that and we got so nice responses and feedbacks from the people, and I post that to our politicians. So it is important to promote the library even when it's closed.
Thank you so much. I think that's a fantastic story of how you have converted a very difficult situation into an opportunity, and in turn leveraged on that and created a narrative to influence government bodies and really hard people whom we otherwise find very difficult to influence. I think it's a fantastic example of converting a near to failure or a very difficult situation into an opportunity. I hope our innovators took a couple of cues from that answer. I see that that your career trajectory has had an accelerated growth since 1992, right? You have year on year, you have gained strength and power and influence, typically in a male-dominated world. And I'm touching upon this diversity quotient in terms of gender diversity, because I think in 1992, these library spaces would have still been slightly a male-dominated word, if I were to use that word. Forgive me if I'm using the wrong words here. You have been a trailblazer of sorts, like leading the way for a generation of women to actually take on higher roles in the library spaces, right? So I have two questions, which is part of this. The first one is, you spoke about creating a personal brand identity, and you used it multiple times in your talk. As a woman leader, as a female leader in the library spaces, what would be your advice for aspiring women who want to take on higher roles and break that glass ceiling? One, and you can share from your personal example of what were some challenges that you faced and how did you navigate through them? And the second part of my question is more of an observational question, and thanks to Priyanka for having nudged me in that direction. You have been in the same space for a very long time, and I see your your profile, and since 1992 you've been in, but of course in different roles. How does one avoid redundancy while breathing in this space for many years? And this is both for men and women, because many of our innovators are part of government libraries, and they have been in the same place for a very, very long time. So first question, from personal branding identity, creating that for women leaders, especially in a male-dominated world. Second one, how to avoid redundancy and reinvent or discover yourself every time and to keep yourself relevant.
Yes, so the first thing is, we all know that librarianship, when it comes to staff, it's a female profession. That means a lot of staff is female. Like in Bremen, the staff is 75% female, and it is in most of the libraries even more. And when I came to that position, we have a group of the 20 biggest cities and the 20 biggest libraries in Germany, which is a subgroup of our association. And in 1992, that were, I think, 2/3 were male, or even 4/4 were male, and just the rest was female. This has changed considerably. Now the male guys are in minority. That comes because in Germany, we have a law that people have to be employed in a public service if they have the same qualification and it's a male or a female candidate for a certain position, then the female candidate should be chosen. This is a law, and you have to comply with that law, of course. So this is something. First thing. Second thing is very personal. When I came to Bremen, as I said, I had a goal, and I was promoting that goal, and everywhere I said the library is important, the library is important, the library is important, the library is important. And you know what people said about me who did not like me, who were a bit annoyed that there is this woman always saying, pronouncing demands all the time. You know what they said? Charming, but insisting. And this is something you should not show. You are a fighter, you fight, and you are, but you should use your personality. And my personality always was being present, not just withdrawn, having a voice, not only having a voice, but also having a personality which is shown. In my former life, before I became a librarian, I was a teacher. I had a teacher training in the school in the, very early 90s. And, you know, the guy who was educating me as a teacher, that was a pedagogy which was different from today. And he said to me, "Oh, Frau Lison, you are always too dominant in the classroom. You should withdraw. The pupils should be the most dominant element in the classroom. You are too dominant." I said, how can I change myself? I couldn't. So therefore, I did not leave school because of that, but I was happy to leave school. And I didn't understand why, because when I remember my own school time, those teachers who were dominant, who were prominent in the classroom, who gave me a lot of information and also personality, showed personality. These are the teachers which I remember most and which I learned a lot of most from them. So I was not really in consensus with this guy, but that is something. So create your personal brand, stand to it, and also endure if people criticize it, but don't be a fighter. Don't put on your war robe or your whatever this is, like the guys now in Washington look like, you know. Be your personality, but be insisting and be, maybe as a woman, we talk about women at the moment, charming. People expect a woman to be charming. I also expect a man to be charming. But in general, people expect a woman to be charming. Why not? But
very interesting.
Not charming and weak, charming and strong. That's the most important thing. So that is the first question.
Fantastic answer. I totally loved what you said, because I think as a woman, own your personality, own your gender. You don't need to become a man to fit into that. Be authentic and be a woman, but at the same time, be that firm personality. I love what you said. Moving on to the second part, in terms of how do you deal with redundancy being in the same space?
Yeah, that's the thing, because you have your tasks first. So when I started to look for that central library, for instance, then it came. But I always said, when I was a library director before '92 in a smaller city close to Bremen, and then my husband said, when I talked with him, shall I go to that? Shall I apply for that position? Shall I go to that bigger position? Am I good enough? And he said, yes, you should do that, because you have already had a new library. I had a new central library in that other city as well. You have reached what you could in that place, and you will be bored. You will be bored when you stay there. So go to the other place, go to the next higher position, show your ambition and live your ambition. That is one thing. And then I came to Bremen and I thought, that's interesting, but maybe I will be bored here as well. So I started to work in library politics. I started to broaden up my scope, my own personal scope, out of the library in Bremen only, of course, not forgetting about the responsibility which I had here in Bremen, but to talk politics and library politics. And of course, not because I want to show myself, but I understood everywhere. I don't know how it is in your countries, but I understood that libraries don't have the attention which they need and which they deserve to have in society.
It's the same in this region also, FYI.
Yeah, I can imagine, unfortunately. That is why as an IFLA president, I also think this is so important. And so I took my bag and said, this is the library and this is society and this is so important. And so, for instance, when I started to do library politics, I said, how can I impress people who are not really interested in libraries with libraries? How can I do this? Of course, politicians love numbers. They love figures. And I said, that's interesting. How many visitors do public libraries in Germany have per year? Oh, yes, they have 200 million visitors per year. And how many visitors does the first football league in Germany have? Oh, they have 80 million. Okay. Then I went to the politicians saying, do you know that public libraries have more than twice the visitors than the Premier League in Germany? Oh, no, you're kidding. Oh, no, you're kidding. No, I said, that's fact. That's fact. And then some of the politicians say, that's this lady coming with a funny comparison about the football visitors. But it is fact. And so it is important that you find things. That's also a brand, you know. Oh, that's the lady who always compares, but they have it in mind then. So that is important. So redundancy is very, very dangerous if you don't find, and if you get bored. That's really bad. You do the same thing all the day. Oh, that's horrible for me. But some people love it. But guess these people are not successful. If you do the same things day by day and there is no variation, there is no engagement, there is no commitment whatsoever, there is no innovation, there is not crossing the border from the libraries into society, and society is vivid. Whatever you do, society is vivid. Then you get bored and then you are not successful. And you get redundant somehow because, well, there is this lady sitting on this chair in the library. Well, somehow. So this is really bad. And so look for something which you find important for your life and for your profession. For me, it was library politics. And yes, library politics on the national level and then on the European level and then on the international level. This is step by step, you know. Use it step by step. Once you are on the national level, people come to you and say, oh, Barbara, well, we have that supranational organization in Europe. Wouldn't you join us? And wouldn't you run for the board? And then someone said, oh, well, Barbara, wouldn't you run for the governing board of IFLA? Yeah. So things, and it's important. You may have a plan. You may be lucky, of course, but you should have a plan. And don't look for a goal which is too far away only, but do it step by step. You may have a goal which is far away, but do it step by step and never underestimate your power as a person and your strengths. Never underestimate your strengths and your skills. Always, what I learned in my life, get your goals a bit higher than you think you could attain them. Never, or you should not always, find your goals on a level where you say, well, it's easy to reach it. So achievement is always a bit better than you think your possibilities are.
And that makes it very achievable and very reasonable, right? It's not something which is a threat. At the same time, it's not something which undermines your own potential as a person. Mm-hmm. Fantastic. Mm-hmm. Thank you so much for that wonderful answer. I think a lot of perspectives, and I've been vigorously taking notes as you were speaking. There was one other thing that I remember you speaking about. You mentioned about the importance of first impressions, how people judge you by your body language, your verbal competencies, your tone, and how a lot of these perceptions are formed without you even having actually speaking to a particular person. People just need to observe you or see you, and then like a scanner, the brain actually picks these cues, and at a very subconscious level or an unconscious level makes these perceptions. Sometimes there is no logic to it. Now, on the same note, as a woman leader and as a person who has been like a trustee, and in various forums I see that you've been leading, specifically, I would like to hear stories on some of the challenges that you face, the derailers especially that you struggled with to overcome. And what is your advice for women leaders who are on that trajectory to take on higher roles in the library spaces? Because you may have staff who are all women. It may be, again, a space where the lower staff, the lower ranking staff are all part of the same gender as you. But then that could also lead to a lot of other problems, different kinds of problems. So your perspectives and your specific stories on this.
Well, well, you see, when you say about this body language and this first impression thing people say, I don't know, but people say, and I trust them, this comes from 10,000 years ago of our development, when we still lived in caves and we immediately had to react in order to save our lives, to envisage danger and to save our lives. And this is still in our brains. This 10,000-year-old is still in our brains. That is why we scan people and say, that's her and that's him. And it's very difficult, most of the times, to change that impression and to change that perception. That is something. So I did a lot of learning. In seminars about communication skills. I think communication is key as well. And also I did a lot of learning in speaking. I mean, not everyone has a voice which goes to the other person immediately, but you can learn. I mean, you can improve your voice as well. And I think the voice is very important. If you have a voice which is a bit more slowly or a bit more like this is okay in your you are a personality like this. But when you want it in a professional way, you should express yourself with a really good voice. And you can learn this. There are seminars, and I did one or two of them. And still, when I'm doing interviews for radio or TV, people say, "Oh, well, your voice is so well developed." And I say, "Yes, it's not only the voice; it's also in the tummy as well." So it is a bit of work. I think it is a bit of work. You are not a born leader. You are not a born impressive personality, unless you are maybe Donald Trump or something like that. But
not a good example to take in these times.
Yeah, but he thinks he is a born leader. He thinks he is a born positive personality, but you have to understand, and you have to recognize that your personality needs development as well as your professional knowledge, and you should find the things which you should work on. Everyone has something which you should work on. So that is the first thing, and it is the body language, it is the voice, it is how you address people, how you look at them. I mean, how many colleagues do I know who don't look at the person they are talking to? A lot, unfortunately, a lot. And I think I am not very familiar, of course, with the cultures in your countries. But since, fortunate or not, the Western way of talking to each other, the Western way of communication is predominant in international communication. Then I think, even if from the cultural point of view, you have a different behavior, you should at least be aware of this and try to find another point where you can prevail. But it is, may I say, it is some of the more easiest ways to just learn it and kind of play a role as well. I think it is important that you know, this is my personality, this is my personal brand identity, and sometimes I also play a role because I know this role is not expected from me, but it is easier to get to my goal when I play that role. You know, I'm a very dominant person. You have maybe noticed this. But even sometimes when I see...
No, I see you as a very strong woman, not dominating. I wouldn't like to add that, prefix that as an adjective, but
thank you very much. Thank you very much. But sometimes I can withdraw myself. Even me, I can withdraw myself when I see, well, it's more opportune. It's more opportune now to just to be silent or to wait until I say. So the perception of the others, my last sentence was, it's not about you, it's about the others. The perception of the others and your reaction to this, always having in mind what's your goal, that's important. That is something which you can learn. And well, sometimes it's the body language. I give you an example, which is, I was in a seminar about communication and conflict management. And I had to play in a role game, in a role play, I had to play a person who wants to have a vacation, and her boss does not give the vacation time for her. So I went into that role play. I went into that room and just said to my boss, "Oh, how could you?" And da. And he was sitting there like this, you know. He was getting smaller and smaller and smaller. And the teacher, the trainer said, "Okay, we try it again. Now I have the role of the boss and you come in." And I came in, you see, "Oh, how could you, how blah, 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 blah." And what did he do? He just got up. He just got up like this, you know? He didn't say a word. And I was not really silenced. Well, I was kind of silenced because the body language was so impressive that I saw, and this is about, let's say, 25 years ago. I still have that in mind. So body language, not always talking, is really key sometimes in some situations. And then we could talk about this issue quietly, but he got up and the other one was like this, you know? So this is important. You really have to be open. You have to watch your surroundings and react.
This is so meta. As you were saying, I was reminded of a very similar experience of the power of body language, you know, how very simple things, I mean, you may not even do it consciously at times, but how simple things like just standing up or having your back erect while listening to a very difficult feedback, giving that eye contact and not wavering, not looking down, how it can kind of, you know, reposition you in a powerful role. Like,
yeah.
You don't need to take SHIT.
Yeah.
You know, thank you so much. I think that was very, how do I put it? Very inspiring the way you shared your story with us. I have one last question for you. And actually two, I'm so sorry. I wrote a question on the go. You kept saying that, you know, you should share your weaknesses and failures. You need to be transparent. While at the same time, you also said that, you know, people are making perceptions. People are judgmental. Human beings are judgmental. So in a world where everybody is waiting, especially in a very competitive world where, and I wouldn't like to call this male dominated, female, no, nothing of that, no gender here, but in a competitive world when one person wants to have that one upmanship over the other, How does a leader play this balancing act while you're sharing weaknesses and failures? Where do you draw the line? How do you play that balancing game? Because it's ultimately to do with building and sustaining your personal brand identity, right?
Yeah.
So,
Yeah. Well, it is always a problem when people think now she or he is hiding something. So when you have done something wrong, and you try to hide that, to put that under the table or under the whatever it is, and hopefully nobody would notice it, then people will notice it. And I mean, we know a lot of politicians who act like that. The most, I think, the worst examples are politicians in this case. And once there is a politician saying, well, I was wrong with this. I was wrong. That was a wrong assumption. That was a wrong perception what I had. There was a wrong meaning. Not saying, well, I got the wrong information, but there was a wrong perception. All the time, these politicians are valued quite high. And when they react like that, that is reported on the news as a positive thing, So I think you show strength. You show strength when you say, I have done something wrong. I had a wrong assumption. I know this. I am ready to correct this. And I understand that next time, maybe I should be more aware of this fact or the other or whatever. So showing that you are a learning person. So learning from failures is very important, learning from mistakes. I don't know whether it is really like that, but when you learn about the culture of mistakes in the community or in the society, then you always get to know that in America there is an Indian tribe where in former times they created the mistake of the year in order that people can learn from the mistakes. So mistakes, if they are not done all the time, the same mistakes, can be a way of learning. And to show weakness means that is, you can show your emotions. That some people think that showing emotions is showing weakness, bad showing weakness, but showing emotions also means that you show your personality in a way that you are a human being. That is important. And weaknesses means two things: emotional weaknesses. Why can't I cry when there is something which really touches me so much? Why shouldn't I cry? I should. When just the other day, I watched a movie. No, just you remember. Perhaps you have seen this as well. When Kamala, the new vice president,
Harris,
yeah, when she well in some time, in 2 hours time,
her family is from our city.
Oh no, great.
In fact, just 2 roads away, her grandparents live. Her grandmom lives 2 roads away.
Wow, fantastic.
Yeah.
Fantastic. So when Kamala did her first speech in that white suit, you remember?
Yes, I do. Vividly.
Vividly. Yes, me too. I was crying at the end. I still have tears in my eyes now. I was crying at the end because I said, well, this is so future. This is our future, and this is so great. And then, of course, when I talked with people about this, I said, well, I was crying. Why shouldn't I say this? I still have tears in my eyes, you see. Why shouldn't I say this? This is an impression which you would never have, which you have once in your life. I was not crying when the Capitol was stormed. I was furious. I was not crying. But what is weakness? in this sense. And so maybe it is show your emotions, and show that your emotions are not weakness, but are strengths. On the other hand, I mean weaknesses which is a weakness of knowledge, something I don't know. Be clear, I cannot decide this now because I have not enough information for this. And not saying, oh, well, yeah, well, then let's decide like that. No, show your weaknesses, your professional weaknesses. I am not trained in this enough. I will do the training, or I cannot, at the moment, I am not able to act on that issue because I have no information, I have no training, and so on. And the same thing, and ask people or get the information and show that you are not only having weaknesses, but also trying to overcome these weaknesses by getting more knowledge or whatever.
Barbara, I have goosebumps when you shared this. I can completely relate to what you're saying, because I was myself in tears when I listened to Kamala make that, and she was making history in a way. She was actually creating a different prototype. She was challenging an existing template and creating a different template for this world, right? And I think so many lessons one can learn from what you just said. Showing you. I have never heard a leader so emphatically, so passionately speak about the power of showing emotions, and that typically shows how emotionally intelligent you are.
Thank you.
And we know very well that IQ is important, but EQ is what is going to take you to the next level and really kind of showcase you as this ideal leader, which is required for today's times. Thank you so much for sharing that. I have just one last question, and I'm going to throw the floor open for everybody else. I see questions pouring in. Could you share a compelling example? And this is keeping the context of the Untitled network in mind, okay, where we are taking them, and they're in their transition journey of kind of, taking accountability and taking decision-making into their own fold. Give me an example of accountability and decision-making that you have exhibited from your own leadership journey that you think would be a huge learning for this group that is going to get weaned off from a certain setup, and they're going to get into their own, auto-monitored, self-monitored mode.
That's a different question. That's a difficult question.
It is.
Well, I just broaden up the self-brand identity thing. Of course, you have to have all this, but you won't be successful if you don't know what the others, how the others tick, and which goals the others have. So it is always important to know this. And when you want to reach a goal, I think it is important that you show the others it's your goal I'm achieving. It's not my goal. So for instance, if the politicians have a special agenda on something, and you want to attain something for the library, try to align your goal for the library with their agenda, telling them, with achieving this goal, I'm helping to achieve your goals. That is so important, I think. Not saying the library is important only, but your goals are, of course, the dominant goals for everyone. And my library, I'm the library director, and I look for your goals and try to get the library as a supporter to achieve your goals. That is so important. That is being still a person with own goals, still a person with own agenda, but then aligning your agenda with their goals. And that is very helpful as well.
Excellent. That was very precise and to the point. Thank you so much. And I see that there is a lot of appetite that is getting built. among our innovators. The questions have started pouring in. So Priyanka, over to you. And thank you so much, and a big round of applause, Barbara.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much for your questions. Thank you. That's so interesting to talk about this.
It was so, more interesting to just listen to you. I'm sure Priyanka and the MSSR team would agree with me. So inspiring, and you've charged me up, actually. I'm sure the others that way, so I'm going to shut my mouth now and over to Priyanka.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Preeta. This was a fantastic conversation. I must admit, it was a very genuine and honest response to all the questions. And I think making yourself more authentically available to be able to share your experience, you spoke from your heart. So thank you so much, Barbara. This really makes a difference, because I think even when Inali as a concept was conceived by Deborah, the intention is that how do you really make people work for passion? How do you allow that passion to, exude from you and, make that your goal, and then allow that goal to actually transpire by taking those baby steps? And today you've really, like Preeta said, I'm getting goosebumps myself. And it's amazing the kind of transition that you've made. So it's a great honor and privilege for me to now open the floor, because it's an Indian having another conversation with another Indian over here in South Asia. So innovators, I'd like you to open out your videos, and you can start asking your questions now. We have I think we have another good half an hour to go. So do ask whatever questions you'd like to ask Barbara now.
Well, I'm looking forward to this.
So I think one question I can start off, it's on the chat from Kia, he's in Myanmar. He's asking, does the government support community-driven libraries in Germany? If so, what kind of support do you provide?
What do you mean by community-driven libraries?
I think he's speaking more in the lens of community centric. It's not, Kia, maybe you should add more to it. It's not completely owned by the government, but it's actually defined and aligned to what the community wants, and they're able to get that for their library.
Okay. We don't have that in Germany. That's another concept, of course. What we do in Germany, and I know from other European countries and also from the US and Canada, is that we invite people to the libraries and ask them for their opinions on special projects, on some changes which we want to make in the library. We ask people, which library opening hours do you prefer? Sometimes we put 5 or 6 chairs into the library when we want to buy new chairs, and ask the people, which is the chair you would prefer? And then we would buy the chair the people would have liked more than the others. So it's this is a method which is called design thinking. So if you look for it in the net or whatever, if you look for design thinking, there are methods how you include people to the library's projects, to many things which happen in the library. And this is one thing. The other thing is that in Europe and also here in Bremen, we sometimes invite people to have some presentations in the library about their issues, about their organizations. But it is not this concept which you maybe just are intending, Kia, is not normal, as I might say, in Germany, because we are a tax-paid organization. And 90% of the budget which we have, you have seen, maybe we have 11.6 million euros of budget per year, and 90% comes from the taxpayers. So only 10% or 8 to 9% are earned by ourselves. That is mainly from fines and fees. And so we have to have a balance between the interest of the people and the interests of the taxpayers, representatives, that is the Bremen Parliament and the Bremen politicians. And So we always try, when we have a special service, to evaluate how this service is used by the people and by our audience and patrons. And some of the times we ask people, what do you think about this issue and how do you want this issue done in the library? But a community library like you just thinking of maybe have in Myanmar, in your country, we don't have that concept here. We have libraries organized by kind of volunteers, smaller libraries, neighborhood libraries, where volunteers say, oh, we want a library in our neighborhood. And then they bring together books and they organize library opening hours. And sometimes they do it in free premises in school or somewhere else. And what we now have for some time, not only in Germany, that is bookstalls like in the streets. So people can put in books into these little cupboards or whatever this is, and other people can take out the books. But this is not really a library. This is just exchange of books. So a library for me would be more with a concept, and of course with a more knowledge. It's not only a library today for me is not only about books. It's about service and it's about communication.
We do have another question from Myanmar. It's from Tandar. She's asking about if you could probably share a little bit more about edutainment.
Yes, edutainment. That's important. You know, in former times, in schools and also in libraries, pedagogy was the main thing. So gives this learning. And we, like schools, a little bit libraries were like that. When people come to us, we should give them the impression that they should learn, that they can learn, that they may learn in the libraries. And learning in Europe and in Germany as well is something which is really very much aligned with school system. And people don't like learning, you know. Some of them are too lazy. Some say, oh, I have learned enough in my life. Why should I go to the library and learn again? But I have interests. So I always say, we provide a learning which is under the skin. We don't say when you come to the library, you learn. We say when you come to the library, you have the opportunity to enhance your interest, to open up your horizon, to find new horizons, to, by jeopardy, perhaps find new topics which are interesting for you. And you're not learning. No, we don't say this. But so it's a learning which is not called learning. This is one thing. And combined with that, especially with school children, is that they come to the library and think they are entertained. But in fact, they are educated and they learn. So we would never have a class in the library saying, and this is the books on geography, and there you find the books on history, and you find this there, and the catalog works like this. This is learning. But when we say, when we invent a kind of theater play to give that information to the class, yeah, that is different. Or like for the very small children, our picture book cinema. Our picture book cinema means that we have books digitized, and then the picture book is on the wall, and we discuss about the picture which is there. We discuss about the plot of the book and all this. Of course, this is learning, because you speak, you learn to speak, you learn how to describe a picture, you learn how to argue, well, is this a good development of the history, or is it a bad development? How could we invent another development of that history? This is not you learn. This is, well, we talk about picture books. We talk about plots. We talk about things which are beautiful or which are a bit struggling or whatever. This is one thing. Or we have, for the very small children, for the babies and their parents, we have programs. The parents come with their babies, and we have programs about singing, about rhyme, children rhymes. We have programs about this. So the parents are not, you learn now how to educate your child. No, you learn, or you are edutained how to edutain your child and have a nice time with your child, while subconsciously or on the next level, the child is learning and the parents are learning. So this is how we try to kind of give a new costume to the learning point in the with entertainment elements.
Thank you, Barbara. I hope, Tandar, that answers your question. If you do need to get more input, please definitely, unmute your mic and ask the question. Another one that's come from Chennai, Kamakshi, she's asking a question. What is the policy that you have taken for accessing cultural heritage in your country?
As a public library, cultural heritage is not our main issue. So we don't, our material which we have is a material which we throw away after some time when it's not up to date, when it's overused and so on. So cultural heritage is not keeping books on the shelves. Cultural heritage for us is giving people the opportunity to learn, again, learning, or to get information and enhance their knowledge about cultural heritage as a whole, always with regard to their interest, to the people's interest who use the library. So in Germany, cultural heritage is an issue for the university libraries, for state libraries, but most of the public libraries have no cultural heritage material. I mean, the original cultural heritage material in their premises, but giving information about cultural heritage through books, also through programs, through events, through lectures, through readings and things like that. So this is what we do for cultural heritage in a broad way.
Can I ask a question?
Yes, please.
Actually, I'm from Sri Lanka, Varuni, from the Colombo Public Library. Actually,
hello, Varuni.
Hello. And I also had experience like you had during the pandemic period. A lot of readers ask when we close the library, they ask when will you open, and how can we borrow books? So because of that pressure, we have to get advice from our politicians and convince them the libraries so need to our readers. Then finally we could open the library. In these days we open. And actually my question is, you said the library, our motto should be the library is yours, or library is me. So could you elaborate that point? Even in at home also we have to think of the library, and in that case how do we balance our private life and our duties? And can you little bit explain?
I think, yes, I think what I mean, or what I meant, is that you well, as a good leader, you should always be open to be addressed as a library, as the library, or as the library leader. I give you a bad example. I give you a very bad example. In a small town close to Hamburg, where my husband comes from, there is a small library, very nice, very pretty, very beautiful, small town, 30,000 inhabitants. And there was a new library director. And when I met him, I said, oh, that's nice that you now here in that small city and with that beautiful library. And where do you live? And he said, well, I'm living in Hamburg. That is 25 kilometers from the place. I said, oh, what a pity, because this place is so nice. And I said, I'm living in Hamburg because I don't want to be addressed all the time at the butchers and the supermarket and everywhere as the library director. And I think this is wrong. I think this is wrong. You, being a good library leader, you should be ready to be addressed as the library leader everywhere, everywhere. When you go to the theater and people come to you and say, oh, you are in the library, by the way, you should have that feeling that's okay. And not, oh God, someone is again asking me about the library. You should be, you should be happy that you are the library leader. You should sell the library through your person as well. That is what I want to say.
Okay, thank you. And your library, you said e-lending facilities are there in Birmingham Library. So how do you lend electronically? Actually, e-books lending facilities.
Yeah,
you develop.
We have about, I always say, you see, maybe you remember, we have about 550,000 inhabitants in Bremen. And I say for every person in Bremen, we have one item. So we have about 550,000 items in the library. And
so every
5,000, yes, 12%, sorry?
Every person is a library member in your city.
No. Of course not. No. Because to be a library member is payable. People have to pay money for a library card. So that in Germany, that's normal, that people pay, for instance, here in Bremen, an adult who gets his or her salary pays 25 euros per year. Children up to 18 are free, and also school kids if they are older than 18. And then we have old age pensioners as well, and students reductions and things like that. So the library card is payable. That is why only 12% of the population have a library card. So we have about 80,000 library cards issued for a population of 550,000 inhabitants. And for German conditions, this is quite a lot, because many of the bigger public libraries only have 8% to 9% of the population as library card holders. That does not mean that other people don't use the library, of course, because we know by surveys and so on that one library card is used by 2 or 3 maybe persons, especially in a family. So that is critical sometimes. So it is a low number compared with Scandinavia, for instance, where 50% of a city are library card holders. But it also is a matter of how you count. Because I remember, I think in the United States or in Canada, North America, they count 2 years. So they collect 2 years, the library card holders, and then say the percentage. In Germany, it is per year. So that is a bit mixed statistics, of course, you see. So what was your question? Sorry.
About e-lending facilities.
Yes, the e-learning. So 12% of our collection is ebooks, And we have a turnover of these ebooks by 6, and we have a turnover of the physical books also by 7. So the physical books have a broader turnover than the ebooks. But of course, with licensing and so on, ebooks are more expensive than the paper equivalent. That's a pity, because the publishers are very strong in Germany and in Europe. And so we had a big increase in ebook lending in the pandemic year. The ebook lending in the pandemic year increased by 20% with comparison to 2019. And the the lending of physical books went down by 40%, no, by 30%. And the visits to the library, the physical visits to the library went down by 40%, because we reduced the number of visitors to 100 in the same time. That's not easy, of course. So ebooks are really increasing, but for the licenses, it's very difficult. We have publishers who do not sell ebooks to the libraries because they are afraid that the libraries would destroy their income.
Thank you, and congratulations for your new position in 21.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you.
Damika, you had a question. Can you unmute and ask?
Priyanka, I am Kusala here.
1 minute, Kusala. Damika would like
Okay.
to ask a question. Let him finish and then you can.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yes, Damika.
Yes, may I ask my question?
Damika, we can't hear you. Can you be a little louder? Can you speak into your mic?
So, can you hear? Can you hear?
Could you speak up, please, or closer to your mic?
Can you hear?
It's
Hello?
difficult, but we can hear you now. It's a bit slow. It's a bit low.
Now okay?
Yeah, it's a bit better. Yeah.
Yes. I want to need to ask from Barbara. Hello.
Yeah, you can speak. We can hear you, Damika. Can you just continue speaking? Yeah.
How your library serve to adult education system, adult learning system?
You mean andragogy?
Yes, adult.
You mean?
Adult learning. He would like to know how you're organizing services for adult learning. How do you improve
adult learning
adult
program
learning?
and adult
You
education?
have adult learning programs or adult education programs. So it's
No, we don't have that for the general public, because there is another institution in Germany which is called the University of the People, or Evening University, and they organize these adult learning programs. What we do, perhaps you have heard that there was many refugees coming to Europe and also to Germany from a lot of countries, from Afghanistan, Iraq, Syria, and Africa. And these refugees came to Germany not knowing German. And these adult universities, they organized language courses. I mean, really courses like at school. But what we did in the library, we organized language cafes. Again, this edutaining thing, you know. So we did not say, come to the library and learn how to speak German, but we say, come to the library and speak with German, communicate with German people, have a coffee, have a tea, even a biscuit, and take the opportunity to find a topic or to talk about the newspaper articles or whatever. And volunteers came to the library, German volunteers, and they did that language cafe with the refugee people. Unfortunately, not last year because of the pandemic. So this is cut off as well. So we don't have real programs because we have this other institution which do the programs.
Okay, thank you very much. Okay.
Kusala?
Yes, thank you, Ms. Priyanka. Ms. Barbara, first of all, I would like to wish you a new appointment for IFLA. And my first question is, how your library find your community needs for library held in research, or what you are doing?
Yes, we do a lot of surveys. So we ask people who come to the library about certain things, like how do you like the library? That is very general, of course. What needs do you have which we should comply with in a better way or in a more engaged way? We do that. And unfortunately, it is very difficult, perhaps you know this yourself, to ask people who are not in the library to know the opinion of the street, as we would say in Germany. So we had some surveys from the street, but that is very, what would you say? That's very cost intensive, and we do not do that very often. As I said, we ask people coming to the library about their opinion on the library. We have people, anyone who can come to the library can find some postcards where they can write down their opinions, critical opinions, or just a review, a more general review or a positive review. And the heads of these libraries, they work on these cards, and sometimes they give me a comment on these cards as well. So we have the opportunity online that people can address the library with their demands and their reviews about the library online, and these people always get a response from us. And then we also have the people working in the library should also take notes when someone comes and says, well, we have this and this problem, or we have this and this demand. And then it goes to the head of the libraries who would then decide how to deal with it.
Thank you, ma'am Barbara. My another question is, wait. What's your library doing for pension persons, elders? What you are doing for them?
The first thing is that we try to have our premises barrier-free. So we always have a look with the Society for Handicapped or Elderly Persons. They check, well, not regularly, say once every fifth year, when the library is already in existence. When we have a new library or have a reconstruction of a library, then we check with these associations how is the library built, or how is everything done for having less barriers or having none barriers at all. That is important for handicapped people, sometimes for families as well when they come with their prams, and of course for elderly people. We have on our website, we have many features. Not the whole website is barrier free, but we have many features for people who have difficulties to read or to listen. So we have screen reading possibilities on the websites. We have a movie on the website with people who, I don't know the English word now at the moment, sorry. So they do sign languaging for some information which is on the website. You can have that as well. And we have talking books. We have material in big letters, so in big characters, things like that. When we talk about opening hours, we think, how would elderly people react to these opening hours? And if we get some information from them, we don't ask them especially, oh, you are an elderly person, just tell us, please. We cannot do that, and we won't do that. So we try to consider the demands of elderly people when we rearrange or arrange new services as well. So this is, and of course, these associations representing the elderly people or representing handicapped people, they are really very attentive. And when something happens in the library which they don't like, or someone tells them, oh, there, the library, there's this and this which we don't like, then they address me and ask, oh, why did you do that? And how can we change this? And so on. So these associations are very active and very attentive, and we have a good partnership with them.
Thank you very much, Ms. Barbara. Very, very clear and good explain, like a drama. And very thank you. Thank you very much for Inili family, for you. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you for your question.
Hi, Barbara. I have a question. Due to some issues, I missed a part of your conversation, so I am not sure whether this has been covered. Hi, I'm Niza from India.
Hi, Niza. Hi, Niza.
And I would want to ask you about your funding system of public libraries there. How are your libraries funded? That is one. And another question about all that digital and IT services you're providing. So who supports that? I mean, who is handling all that? Do you have IT professionals, or the librarians are qualified to do that?
So first of all, the financing. The library is paid by taxpayers. 90% of the budget of the library is paid by taxpayers' money. 90%, maybe 91, maybe 88, something like that. And the rest is income for the library through fines and fees. Our library cards are payable. So apart from these 8 to 10%, which is our own income, are the fees for the library cards. And we have people who are not very well bringing back their returning the books or the media in the time needed. So we also have quite a number of fines getting in. But with e-media, with the e-books, there is no return. Well, there is no return policy connected with fines, because once you have an e-book on your laptop or whatever, then it just dissolves. It's gone after a certain amount of time, and there is no fines coming in. So we really have a reductions in overdue fines coming in, since we have that ebook collection. That is a problem, actually. So that is one thing. And of course, we do some projects. We have some projects money from other organizations, cultural organizations or other organizations. We have some donors as well. For instance, we have a prison library. So in the central prison, there is a library. And we have some people working there, not volunteers, but they are working only part-time. And I have a donor for this who pays me for this, especially for this issue, pays me 10,000 euros a year for paying these people working in the prison library. And how did I attain this? This might be interesting for you as well. He's a nice guy. He's one of the richest persons in Bremen. And he paid something else. He paid a bicycle for the library to go to the parks with the library collection and things like that. And then I said, well, we have that issue and we need these 10,000 euros. And he said, let's think about it. And then I said, oh, perhaps you would be interested, you and your wife would be interested to visit the prison library, to go into the prison. I mean, one of the richest persons of Bremen visit the prison inside. And so we did that. We invited him into the prison. He was there. He should get rid of his phone, of his money, everything. And so he was really, and there he couldn't do anything, just follow the persons, the police persons in there, and his wife as well. And they were very impressed already when they came into the prison. They had to hand out their identity cards. So they were without identity cards, without money, without phone, everything. And then they went with us to that library, and there were people, these inmates in the prison, and they asked them, how do you feel? Why are you in the library? And things like that. And then they got out and said, yes, we pay the money for 3 years at least. We pay you the money you need. And I think it's important to do things like that because one of the richest persons in Bremen now was in the prison library. He has his parties. He is with his peer group. And then he said, do you know, I was in the prison. Oh, wow. So he became a special person through that. And doing things like that are so important. And it is really a lot of work to do this. It's a lot of work for 10,000 euros times 3. But still, it is also enhancing and improving the image of the library, because they see the value of the library through this, not through the numbers which we have when we talk about our lending performance or things like that. They see the library and the value of the library through things like this. This is so important. And so we have some donors, and donations are, well, I think I get 50 to 100,000 euros per year through donations.
Wow, that's great.
Okay, there are actually quite a number of questions.
On that part, the digital services, are your librarians qualified or you have IT
the digital services? Yes. The ebooks we buy ebook licenses through a vendor, and the vendor is the aggregator. So the licenses from the publishers go to the vendor, to this aggregator, and our customers directly are aligned with the aggregator. So they get the customer information. So this is, well, of course, we have a library management system, and the library management system has to be handled by some staff, and most of the staff is tech staff. So it is tech staff. It's not a librarian. It was, in former time, it was a librarian. That was not always the best solution. I think, and we have in my library, there is some people who are not librarians by education, but experts and specialists in other fields. Like our marketing expert is not a librarian. The person who is responsible for workplace learning and the education of the incoming new librarians and all this, she is not a librarian. She is an educated HR person, and things like that. So I think it's easier for a person who is an educated HR person understand what the library needs. She's not a librarian. She does not do the library issues, but she is an expert in HR. And this is the most important thing. So I think we should, in many libraries, this is not the case yet, but I think it is important to have experts in the library, if the library is big enough, of course, to have experts in the library on their field and integrate them in into the library, and not in Germany that much, but for instance, in a very best practice country like the Netherlands, it's a best practice country for public libraries and for other libraries as well. Even the library director is not a librarian. Even the library director is not a librarian. I'm a trained librarian. I was trained for 2 years. But the library director in the city of Rotterdam, for instance, which is one of the best libraries I know, he is not a librarian. I think this is possible because when you have good staff, when you have well-educated staff, and you are a manager, you are in a manager position. And then if you are in a manager position, I'm not really very much involved in all the library details. I have very good staff as well, though I am a trained librarian. I have very good staff as well. And when they come to me and tell me, look, we want this and this and this and blah, blah, blah. And I tell, well, this is the goal, and we define what you do, and you define how you do it and how you reach the goal. And this is, I think, the most important thing. It's the same with everything which is electronic in the library. I think we need experts in technology. We need an expert in social media, people who are really fluent in social media. I couldn't do social media like this. No, I could not. And we need experts, and we need librarians as experts in library issues, and we need other experts in other issues.
But don't you think this is a threat to librarianship, that a library manager is a non-librarian?
No, I don't think so. I don't think that if that person who is the director of a library is a librarian and cannot manage, then it's a threat to the library.
Of course, that way it is, yes.
If a person who is the director of a library is a librarian and can manage, that's wonderful.
Yeah.
So we have a couple of more questions. I think 3 more. One is from Bangladesh. If we can quickly just respond, Barbara, because we're also running short of time.
Yep.
Al Mamun from Bangladesh, he says, librarians may not have all quality. Librarians may not have all qualities regarding leadership. So which leadership quality is mandatory, and how can you adopt it?
Well, that was the whole presentation. Well, mandatory is being a manager. I did not talk about being a manager, but being a manager is also important to have organizational interests if you want to be a leader. I think no leader in a library, nowhere, but in a library as well, without having a managerial quality somehow learned or whatever, is in the right position. That is important. But a leader in a library needs to be interested in the environment of the library. That is important. As I said, look onto the others. Look onto, not get out of the library with your brain, with your eyes, and with your body, and look what is happening outside, and bring back what you learn outside and adapt it for the library services to improve the library services. That, I think, is very important. And how you learn that, just try. I think learning by doing is so important. I mean, you can read a lot of books. If you don't do it, then it's useless. You have it in your brains, but when you have it in your brains, it's not in your environment of the library. So what you learn is by doing most of the time. Of course, you can start learning with books or with material on the screen or whatever, but the real learning for a leader is acting, is doing it. That's the most important thing.
Great. That's a great takeaway point. The other question is again from Sri Lanka. Arvindi, what kind of programs have you done to create young leaders in your community?
Well, we have internal workplace development. our HR person, you see, she's not a librarian. She is very good in finding out the potential. She talks a lot with people. I mean, the team leaders also talk a lot with people. And so when we find a person who is a potential leader, from their own point of view, from the point of view of the team leader, and from the point of view of the HR person, we try to develop a development program that is internal workplace learning, and of course that is visiting seminars and taking part in whatever. Very useful is also working in committees of the library association. So if a person wants development for herself or himself, and we also see this potential in that person, there is one way that we say, oh, well, you are an expert in our library, maybe in diversity management. Yes, cultural services for diversity culture or cultural diversity. Why don't you try to become a member of the commission or the committee of the library association for this issue? Go there, learn there, bring back what you learn, and try to develop yourself in this regard. So we give not free time, but we give work time for these people to be engaged and learn outside the library as well. And of course, when we have some special issues like how to invent some programs for special target groups, then we also send the people out, and then we see who is coming back, who brings back good examples, who installs things in the library which are important for our development of the library. And then these people are more in the focus of the team leader, are more in the focus of the HR person, and also in my focus. And then we try to develop them. Every year we have every team leader with his or her team members has a talk on the personal development. And we try to follow and to give space for this personal development. But not everyone wants to be a leader. Not everyone who has the potential to be a leader wants to be a leader. Because to be a leader, as you may have assumed from my presentation, is having difficulties and enduring difficulties, enduring maybe conflicts, bringing in your own personality, your own time into that leadership. And there is people who say, no, even if leadership is connected with more money, I don't want it. I don't want it. I want to live a peaceful life. I don't want to be a senior person to others. No, I don't want this. And then you should accept that as well. So not everyone wants to be a leader and wants to become a leader. And I had one or two persons in my experience whom I really judged to be an ideal leader by their potential. And when we offered them, well, the education to support them and all this, they said, no, we don't want this. Even a male person. So, and you should accept that. You should accept that. Nobody can be a good leader when he or she is forced to be a leader.
Okay, I think we'll take just one last question. This is from Myanmar, Tandar again. Could you share any ideas for us for Myanmar? Our government support very few amount of public libraries. We can say that libraries culture have just again become alive again in 2015. during transforming democracy. Even if we as a community library want to work together and want to share any innovative services with public libraries, it remains difficult. How can we advocate plans to the government?
I think it's always important to find partners. Unfortunately, I have no insight into Myanmar that much. I know from news, I know things from those parts of the world. It's mainly news and few insights which I have, or reading newspapers on this. But I think if you are able to find partners who support the idea of public libraries and support the promotion of the value of public libraries, that is so important. You maybe, as I understand your question, you cannot impress now the politicians with high numbers or big performance figures. That's for sure. Try to find partners and try to find out, what do the politicians want for their country? What do they want for the development of their people? And libraries, public libraries, are an element are a functional development element for the development of a people. I give you an example. You know Singapore, of course. Let's say 25 years ago, there were no really good libraries in Singapore. No, there weren't. And then the government said, oh, we want a development of our country. And all we have, we don't have oil, we don't have other assets, we don't have other precious things. We don't have a big industry. We have a harbor, yes, okay. But we want a development for our people, because what we have is the people and the brains of the people. And so they decided, how could we develop the brains of the people? There are the libraries, yes. So they sent out in Singapore 25 years ago, they sent out people to scan the world where the best libraries are and how the best libraries work. And then these people came back, and the government, together with specialists, invented the development of libraries for the country in order to develop the brains of the people. And I think this is such a good example. Of course, there is money in Singapore, and I think there is not that much money in Myanmar. But if you find partners to promote the idea that the development of the people is crucial for the country, and how could we contribute to this as a library, and libraries can contribute to this for any age, that would be maybe a help for this. Of course, I don't know, but that is a story from Singapore. And really, I was not in Singapore before that, but I have seen photos and I have heard about the bad state of public libraries and libraries in Singapore before they had the idea, we want to develop the brains of our people. That might be a helping idea of this.
Thank you, Barbara. I think I think partnership is very important if we want to bring localized change, and I think making them also equally responsible for social development. So it's a great way to go. And
thank you so much, Barbara, for this amazing session. And you told everything in so much detail, and I'm sure it's really going to be useful for all of us.
Thank you very much. And it was a great pleasure for me, and I enjoyed doing it very much. And I hope to see you very soon as leaders or emerging leaders. And you are emerging leaders already, and then you will be leaders, that's for sure. And I hope to meet you maybe in the IFLA context or in any other context. Thank you very much for your attention and for your questions. Thank you.
yeah.
Thank you,
So
Barbara.
thank you so much. The poll results are out that you can all see on your screen. And with that, I'd like to thank Barbara. Thank you so much for your time. It's been very empowering for us. It's been a very different experience of actually having to learn from you what it really means to be a leader. I mean, there are many points that you have shared. It's all about personality. It's all about, brand building, and then, taking steps to it, make sure that you're putting yourself out there to reach your goals. There are many points that I've noted down, but I think by the end of the day, I think one main aspect that I'd like to give, especially for the South Asian context, don't underestimate your capabilities. I think that's very important.
Yes.
Being able to just
Yes.
see your strength and just be valuing it, hold on to it. That's what actually allows you to then weave your rope towards your goal. It does not happen overnight. Overnight leaders are not born. You just weave. There are weaknesses. Yes, submit to your weakness. It's perfectly fine to cry. It's perfectly fine to, throw your anger at the pillow sometimes, but work around that and don't let go of it, because that is what builds you for becoming the better you. The better you becomes the better leader. So just, it's the biggest takeaway point among many other things that I felt was very much relevant to this context in this place, because many of us do feel demotivated very quickly in this environment. But it is your strength, it is your skill, and of course, being an alien makes you one step ahead. It really empowers you. It puts you in a place where you can speak for yourself. So make use of this platform, learn more, do more, and be your true self. Thank you so much. Thank you.
Thank you very much. All the best to you. Bye-bye.
Good night to all. Good evening to all.
Good night. Bye-bye.
Bye.